Leonard, 31 points on 11 of 14 shooting. Leonard is averaging 35.3 points and shooting 64% in the last 3 games. Golden State is in town Thursday night to play the Clippers. There's a good chance Golden State will not have Draymond Green on Thursday. The NBA is considering another suspension for Green. Last night in Phoenix, Green was ejected for punching Phoenix center Yusuf Nurkic in the face. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Environmental justice, pollution, and climate. In Los Angeles and across America, people of color are suffering and dying from disproportionate health impacts on a planet that has less than 10 years to prevent irreversible damage. Heat illnesses, respiratory illnesses, water-related illnesses, food system impacts, insect-related diseases, Black maternal health, and mental health effects. As the impacts of climate change mount, millions of vulnerable people, our people, are going to bear the brunt of these extreme environmental events, which will likely lead to forced displacement, loss of cultural identity, and other related risks. These realities are as real as rain. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details about the most progressive multimedia and live events campaign any Black media outlet has ever undertaken to combat the climate catastrophe. Experts, events, empowerment. It's all on the way from unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580. We don't black down. We level up.
Level up, 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 level up.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's the TavisSmileyShow.com or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour today, 2 conversations. Up first, Peter Greenberg, CBS News travel editor. Peter has a few secrets to share with you about how to best navigate the busiest travel season of the year. We'll do that at the top of hour 2. On the B side of hour 2, our resident physician, Dr. Robert Drummond, joins us to dissect the latest news. Did you hear about this? The latest news on a groundbreaking treatment, a cure for sickle cell disease, COVID, and, of course, the controversial weight loss drug Ozempic. A lot to talk about with our resident physician, Dr. Robert Drummond, on the backside of hour 2. In our third hour, 2 more conversations. Up first, we will start hour 3 today in dialogue with Isaac Hayes III, son of the legendary music artist Isaac Hayes. And Isaac Hayes III will tell us all about an innovative $10 million crowd-funded app called Fanbase. The father was certainly, God rest his soul, in music. The son is in tech, and he has a $10 million crowd-funded app called Fanbase. We'll talk about that, and I am certain we'll squeeze in a little love for Black Moses or Mr. Hot Buttered Soul. If you prefer, we'll do that on the top of hour 3. On the B side of hour 3.
Wow! What's this?
This is the North Pole.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. Where's the snow?
Why are you smiling like that?
I just like to smile. Smiling's my favorite.
Make work your favorite. That's your favorite, okay?
Okay.
Work is your new favorite.
Fine.
It's time for the announcement.
Okay.
Okay, people, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., Santa's coming to town.
Santa! Oh, my God! Santa here? I know him. I know him.
He'll be here to take pictures with all the children.
Yeah!
Just keep your receipts. 10 a.m. tomorrow.
10 a.m. tomorrow.
Santa's coming to town.
Yes.
On the backside of our 3, funny man Faison Love joins us to celebrate the 20th anniversary, believe it or not, the 20th anniversary of the now classic holiday film Elf, which is currently running on AMC almost every night. How do I know? Well, you can figure out how I know. It's running almost every night on AMC. Still funny 2 decades later. Faison Love, comedian on the backside of our 3 today. But we commence today's show with The Intercept's Washington bureau chief and co-host of Counterpoints, Ryan Grimm, about his new book, The Squad, AOC, and the Hope of a Political Revolution. I am pleased to welcome Ryan Grimm back to this program. Ryan, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you, Tavis?
Man, if I complained, I'd be an ingrate. I am doing well and delighted always to be in dialogue with you, particularly about this new book, The Squad, AOC, and the Hope of a Political Revolution. We'll jump right into that in a moment. For 2 minutes, though, right quick, here's some breaking news. Breaking news out of the U.S. Supreme Court. The justices, we thought this was going to happen, and indeed it has. The justices have decided to hear a case which could, in fact, affect the cases of hundreds of people charged in connection with the January 6th attack on the Capitol and potentially the prosecution of one Donald J. Trump. They are going to hear and decide the scope of obstruction charges central to Trump's January 6th case. As we all know, Ryan, Donald Trump appointed some of the members of the U.S. Supreme Court, and now they will sit in judgment as to the scope, if any, of the prosecution against him. Jack Smith has asked for this ruling. The prosecutor, special prosecutor, asked for this ruling early before they get too much deeper into this. But the Supreme Court will now rule on the potentiality, the scope of the prosecution of one former president, Donald J. Trump. How do you read this breaking news?
I mean, it's a really interesting case and a really interesting question because it's not actually obvious which side people should necessarily fall down on, but based on which party they're in and how they feel about things. Because essentially, they're talking about the obstruction of an official proceeding count here. Now, this is a law that over the last couple decades has really only been applied to people who tampered with evidence, destroyed evidence, actively wrecked things to get inside of an official proceeding. The fear that some civil liberties people have is, how people stand up and protest at a congressional hearing, or they'll go to a vote and they'll yell from the gallery, you've got blood on your hands for funding this war, or otherwise are protest that they're worried that if this weapon gets into the wrong hands, anybody who protests anything is going to get hit with this obstructing of official proceeding. And because the argument is, hey, like obstructing an official proceeding, that's kind of the point of a protest. And so you could say, look, there's so many charges to hit these rioters with. There's so many charges that you've got Trump on. He's facing 4 from Jack Smith alone. If it goes down to 3 and you take that weapon out of the hands of future prosecutors, maybe that's worth it. So, but we'll see. The Supreme Court's going to rule on whether or not this applies.
So what's fascinating about what Ryan already said, we'll come to it in just a moment here as we continue this dialogue, get this dialogue started really, is whether or not if the Supreme Court rules that Jack Smith has gone too far in these obstruction charges. I got a smart audience. They already see where this is headed. all these crazy white folk who ran up on the Capitol Hill could, in fact, be given a break because the Supreme Court rules, as Ryan just said, that a protest is about obstructing normal proceedings. And so they have a right to do that. You see where I'm headed, right? We'll continue when we come forward with Ryan Graham on Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac perfected like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Cool. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shout it, don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Dearly, beloved, clearly, we're hustling. Bustin', truckin'. Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit catblack.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range. On a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with SCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
Yeah.
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Day one, the hardest day. The day you hear,
"This is a type of blood cancer."
But day one is just one day. At the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, we are here to help you move past day one.
On day 45, I discovered an online community who shared great tips for in-treatment care.
On day 185, LLS helped me file my insurance claims properly.
To learn more and get help on day 2, day 28, or any day, please visit LLS.org or call 1-800-955-4572.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event, or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Ryan Graham, who is the Intercepts Washington Bureau Chief and co-host of Counterpoints. His new book is called The Squad, AOC, and the Hope of a Political Revolution. We'll get right into that book, I promise, in a moment, but there's some breaking news. In case you've just tuned in, I will repeat what I said moments ago. The U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to hear the scope of obstruction charges central to Trump's January 6th case. Now, this is Jack Smith, the federal prosecutor who's in charge of the case about what happened on January 6th. He has asked the Supreme Court to hear urgently a case regarding the following. And here's the essential question. Can the government charge defendants in these cases under a federal law that makes it a crime to corruptly obstruct an official congressional proceeding? You hear Ryan's point, and it's spot on, that the point of a protest is to obstruct. And so the question is whether or not Jack Smith can prosecute not just Donald Trump, but think of all the hundreds of folk who've already been tried and convicted. All of those convictions could, in fact, be overturned for these fools, I mean these fellow citizens who ran up on Capitol Hill.
They can be both.
They can be both, exactly. So all the folk who were involved in this insurrection could, underline the word could in fact have many of their cases overturned. If the Supreme Court rules, they have a right to do that. That's the point of protest, and you can't charge them with that particular violation of the law. Obviously, it has far-reaching effects for Donald Trump, not the least of which, Ryan Grimm, is that it's going to likely delay the case of Donald Trump. And that's exactly what Donald Trump wants. All these cases delayed. You and I talked the last time you were on, made a joke about it, in fact, although it ain't funny, that Joe Biden's best chance to win, according to many of these polls, is for Donald Trump to be convicted during the race. If Donald Trump is not convicted during the race, then it is what it is. That's a lot for you to unpack, Ryan, but your thoughts on any of what I've just said.
Yeah, because and as you get closer, it becomes really dicey. You're like, what? At what point, when the mail ballots are going out in September, October, are you gonna, you convict the guy in October? Then there's a delay for sentencing. So I think you're exactly right that the most important thing to come out of this is the delay, because we're almost at the Christmas holidays, and then we're into January, and really soon we're pushing into the spring and summer, and the campaign is fully on, and I think the courts will be a lot more reluctant at that point. Not that they've been eager to move with any haste to begin with, but the closer you get to the election, the harder it gets.
Yeah.
But and I think there's about 300 of those January 6th folks who have that obstruction charge. Now, a lot of them have other charges too. Trespassing, vandalism, assaulting officers, other, all sorts of, reckless, crazy behavior that you can criminalize in other ways. But yeah, if that got overturned, it would be a boon to some of those folks.
So for those who know sports analogies, and that would be most of us, we talk all the time, certainly in football, we were in football season, about Hail Marys. Everybody recalls the ultimate Doug Flutie Hail Mary, 20, 30 years ago. But we always talk about Hail Marys in football. I saw a couple of attempts at that this past Sunday. This would be the ultimate, the mother of all Hail Marys. that if Donald Trump and his team could pull this off, and to your point, those 300 other persons who've already been convicted under this charge would have those convictions overturned. It is the mother, I repeat, of all Hail Marys. I have read on The Intercept, I've discussed on this program, everybody in Black America has had the same response, certainly, to what happened on January 6th. And if these had been black folk storming the Capitol, there'd be absolutely no possibility of a Hail Mary where the Supreme Court could make a decision that they were prosecuted under a law that they shouldn't have been prosecuted under, and we're going to overturn all of that. It's going to impact Donald Trump's case. It's going to delay the trial of Donald Trump. There's nowhere in the world, had these been black folk, that we'd be in this frame. So what do you say about how the country, certainly people of color, black folk, are going to respond if the Supreme Court rules in a way? I remind the audience, they already know this, Donald Trump appointed that is, some members of this court. If they were to rule that Jack Smith is wrong in this case, and it impacts Donald Trump's trial and all these convictions overturned, how in a so-called democracy where they've now given cover to these persons storming and insurrecting at the Capitol, how are we going to process that, Ryan?
Well, first of all, you never would have had 10,000 black protesters get into the Capitol because there would have been 100,000 cops there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you get like 1,000 black protesters out, and you've got 5,000 cops. Mm-hmm. So the idea that was to me the most striking thing, because I've been covering and before I was a journalist attending protests in Washington 25 years or whatever, and you get some left-wing anti-war people out there, and they will literally bring in police from Ohio to make sure that you've got it protected. You have those MAGA folks in there for days ahead of January 6th. The city was just teeming with people posting online about how they're armed and they're going to do 1776. Like they kept telling you exactly what they planned on doing. And they're filling the city day after day. And all they had is some bike racks out there and the normal number of cops. That just absolutely would not have happened if you're talking about black demonstrators. Like you would have had the National Guard. You don't even have to imagine like what it would look like. But yes, I think 2 years later, then the Supreme Court comes in and says, well, you were a little bit rough on these folks. That sends a signal that they aren't serious about, defending democracy. Now, what's fascinating, I don't know if you've noticed this, on the right, they are now completely incapable of organizing a rally of more than like 12 people, because as soon as somebody goes on Facebook to say, hey, let's protest this or that thing, everyone jumps in and calls them a Fed and says this is a trap. So they have like really they out organized the left on January 6th. But the response, even if the Supreme Court lets some of them off on this case, the response is that they're so paranoid now about Fed infiltration that they can't fill up a bus anymore.
Yeah. And yet, your point notwithstanding, Ryan, I can only read this if the Supreme Court were to go in this direction, and we're talking about it. Why? Because it's possible that they would go in this direction, given all the other rulings that they've rendered over the last couple of years. It's not at all unlikely that the U.S. Supreme Court will come to the rescue. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Sorry, just to your point, the lower court ruled 2-1 on this, and the one was a Trump judge who said, this is too far.
Exactly.
You shouldn't have been able to.
So there's more evidence, courtesy of Ryan Grimm from The Intercept. That's why he does what he does so well. There's more evidence of the point I was trying to make, or about to make, which is it is highly likely, not at all impossible, that the Supreme Court could, again, in this ultimate Hail Mary, come to the rescue of these white supremacists who stormed our Capitol on January the 6th and give them, once again, another way out. The point you made prior to, notwithstanding, Ryan, I can only read this as a shot in the arm to these white supremacists in this country. That would embolden them, to say nothing of how it's going to just excite all over again the rabid right. And here again, that plays into Donald Trump's hand. I can hear Trump right now. You can hear him right now on the stump were his Supreme Court to go in this direction. He's going to remind you, I appointed these members of the U.S. Supreme Court who just gave you this reprieve. And if you give me another term, you can hear the stump speech, can you not?
Yeah. No, yeah. And he's been out there saying, like, I'm going to review, I might pardon these folks. It went from this huge black mark on the Republican Party that they were complicit in organizing this like uprising against the peaceful transfer of power, to now you got Trump saying, I might even pardon all these guys.
I'll say a final word about this. I was just in conversation with somebody the other day, and this came up. To Ryan's earlier point, his eloquent point, that had these been 10,000 Negroes, they couldn't have got anywhere near the Capitol, much less on the inside. I was reminding somebody the other day that at the March on Washington, April 28, 1963, of course, JFK, President John F. Kennedy, and the government were so scared of all these black folk coming to Washington. Now, remind you, you all seen the pictures, you've seen the documentaries. These are black women in dresses and high heels. These are black men in suits and ties. They were so afraid of all these Negroes at the time coming to the Capitol that they called in the federal government. I mean, they called in the Federal Reserve. The police, to Ryan's point, from states around had assembled in Washington. They had law enforcement everywhere. They were so afraid of what was going to happen at the March on Washington. As I said to somebody the other day, and this was a march that was headed in part by the guy who had won the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, think about that. This guy had won the Nobel Peace Prize, and yet they were so scared. They were so scared. What was going to happen? They called in cops and law enforcement from everywhere, and you'll be happy to know, and for those who know your history, you already know this, there was not a single, not one, over 250,000 people on the Capitol that day, at the Lincoln Memorial. Not a single arrest for any kind of vandalism or anything. Not a single arrest that day at all. and you got 250,000 people there assembled. These are black people. You got, comparatively speaking, a handful of white folk storming the Capitol. There are hundreds of arrests, and now the Supreme Court may come to their rescue. I digress on that, but that is the breaking news of the day. Rest assured, for days on end now, we'll be unpacking that here, not just on this station, but certainly on every major news outlet and at The Intercept. They'll be talking about this, trust and believe, what the tentacles are, what the ramifications are potentially of a Supreme Court that's already out of control, getting more out of control, and coming once again to the rescue of these protesters on January 6th. We'll leave that there for now. So, Ryan, looking at my clock, I got about 2 minutes here now before we continue on the other side. Let me use these 2 minutes, or let you use these 2 minutes to set up, to explain why you wrote The Squad, what the book is about, and then when we come forward, we'll spend the rest of our time talking about The Squad, going right into these pages. But give me your thesis here at the outset.
Yeah, the book is about, first these 4 women in 2018, AOC, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and then joined by Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush 2 years later, how this kind of people-powered movement, these idealistic folks who come from outside the system crash into Washington, into a place that's really designed to crush idealism, to crush people power. And half the book is really about the reaction to them, but not just from Donald Trump, but from within their own party and from the kind of pro-Israel world that put together these massive big money operations to say, wait a minute, we can't really have this.
Mm-hmm. For those persons who reacted viscerally, how scared are they by the Squad? It ain't but 6 of them, but how scared are they by them?
Well, I think for one, people are starting to use scared and safety to mean they're angry. Mm-hmm. Like they're not actually that scared, but they're really angry. But what they are scared of is the idea that the Squad could create space, on the one hand for, robust, honest criticism of what Israel is doing, mm-hmm. but really also create space for a more progressive agenda when it comes to a Green New Deal, Medicare for all, higher wages, more union power, the basic kind of things that cut up against corporate and uber wealthy power.
Yep. But for those who were concerned about that, Nancy Pelosi shot that down early on, it seems to me, for all the good that Nancy Pelosi did. And she did do some good as Speaker. Let's be clear, we wouldn't have Obamacare were it not for Nancy Pelosi, because at one point, as Ryan will recall, I remember this like it was yesterday, with all due respect to Barack Obama and his former chief of staff, the former mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, they had basically thrown in the towel. And if you know the story about this, Nancy Pelosi went to the White House and basically cussed out the president and Rahm Emanuel and told them, I have worked my behind off to get every Democrat lined up to pass Obamacare. Don't you dare negotiate against yourself. Don't you dare throw the towel in on this. And as you know, Obamacare passed without a single Republican vote, but Nancy Pelosi pushed that through. Not even Barack Obama or Rahm Emanuel. Nancy Pelosi made that happen. So she did some great work, but she shut down AOC and this progressive agenda pretty early on. We'll talk about that and a great deal more. The book is called The Squad, AOC, and the Hope of a Political Revolution. The author of that book is the Intercept's Washington Bureau Chief, Ryan Grimm, our guest right now on Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between 2 turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
I'm Ray Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The Israeli-Hamas war is now in its 68th day. This comes as the United Nations General Assembly is working on an immediate humanitarian ceasefire between the Palestinian militant group and Israeli forces. AAA is predicting the last 10 days of the year will see more than 115 million Americans traveling at least 50 miles. A third person is dead in the United States after eating cantaloupe contained with salmonella. Another 96 have been hospitalized, and 230 cases of the illness have been reported by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Cases have been reported across the country, and a recall has been put in place for several brands and retailers. And that's the latest. I'm Ray Harris on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Warning, RSV, or respiratory syncytial virus, is a highly contagious virus that can be dangerous for adults 60 and older. Not all dangers come with warning labels. Talk to your pharmacist or doctor about getting vaccinated against RSV today. Learn more at bewareofrsv.com.
Save big every day during our 25 days of deals at Lowe's. Save $100 on select master-built vertical smokers. Shop in-store and online because Lowe's knows deals every day. Valid through 12/13 while supplies last.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers lose by 2 at Dallas last night. The loss spoiled a big night for LeBron and Anthony Davis. 37 points and 11 rebounds for AD. LeBron had 33 and 9 assists. Luka Doncic broke down the Lakers defense all night with 33 points and 17 assists. The Lakers are at San Antonio tonight. The Clippers beat Sacramento by 20. First 5-game winning streak for the Clippers since January 28, 2022. Another brilliant game for Kawhi Leonard, 31 points on 11 of 14 shooting. Leonard is averaging 35.3 points and shooting 64% in the last 3 games. Golden State is in town Thursday night to play the Clippers. There's a good chance Golden State will not have Draymond Green on Thursday. The NBA is considering another suspension for Green. Last night in Phoenix, Green was ejected for punching Phoenix center Yusuf Nurkic in the face. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, bro.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
I'm Scarlett Johansson. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. You can join the movement to end hunger by donating, volunteering, and advocating. Because when people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/act now.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Diane from Michigan, a disabled senior citizen trying to get by. Henry from Florida, a veteran fighting to make ends meet. Elena from Arizona, a mother struggling to feed her daughter. Hi, I'm Connie Britton, and I support Feeding America because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year, like Diane, Henry, and Elena. Learn more at feedingamerica.org. Feeding America. 200 food banks strong.
Teachers are dynamic leaders shaping a new generation. They bring a variety of perspectives from diverse backgrounds, innovating how they teach to prepare students for our fast-changing world. They're skilled experts, discovering a universe of solutions, telling stories, inspiring, mentoring, connecting cultures, leading by example. Teaching is a journey that shapes lives. Are you ready? Explore teaching at teach.org, supported by the U.S. Department of Education and 1 million teachers of color.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Ryan Grimm, who is the Intercepts Washington bureau chief, co-host of Counterpoints, and author of the brand new book out now, The Squad, AOC, and the Hope of a Political Revolution. You've said a few things already, Ryan, worth unpacking. Let me start with this. When you referred to the rise of these members of the Squad, 6 now, as a people-powered movement, unpack that phrase.
They fought against what they would describe as the corporate wing of the Democratic Party that didn't really spend much time trying to reach out to kind of grassroots voters because they had enough money coming in from the PACs, from the lobbyists, and from Washington Democrats to just kind of shower on them. Like if you won the primary, and the primary basically took place in Washington, you'd go to Washington, you'd meet with Steny Hoyer, meet with Nancy Pelosi. They ask you a couple questions, and if you're their guy, then you're their guy. And used to be all guys. Now they've diversified that a little bit. Whereas what Barack Obama showed in 2008 was that you could raise enough small money from small donors that it would add up to hundreds of millions of dollars. Now he also obviously took lots of money from super rich donors as well. And as his administration went on, those are the folks that were getting a lot of the meetings. But it really showed the way forward. And in 2015 and 16, when Bernie Sanders took on Hillary Clinton, he expected that maybe he'd raise $20 million his entire campaign. He raised like $1 million just off of C-SPAN in a 24-hour period when he launched his campaign. He was kind of obscure at the time. He's a senator, but not that many people had really even heard of him. But there was just this hunger for something else than what the Democratic Party was kind of offering up. And so by people powered, I mean people chipping in $10, $15, $20, $30 in big enough numbers that now all of a sudden you can compete and you don't need that lobbyist money. And then you can just base your political positions on, what the people who support you want you to do.
Given what Bernie showed could be done, and for that matter, what Barack Obama, to your point, showed what could be done with small donors, why? Let me just pivot for a second. We'll come right back to the book. Why, to your mind, Ryan, has this people-powered movement, as you call it, which elected members of the Squad to Congress, but why has that same people-powered movement, writ large, not created a robust third party, a robust independent party in this country as yet?
Getting the infrastructure together to compete as a major party is so much harder than competing within a Democratic primary. Every time a third party in our history has kind of risen up and become a major party, it's not because people successfully kind of organized it from the bottom up and overthrew the other party. It was because the other party fell apart. Like the Whigs are the last major party that fell apart. That's because they had this completely irreconcilable position on slavery, which was half the party in the North was okay with it, half the party in the North was against it. Obviously all the party in the South was for it. And so when slavery became a big issue and they couldn't suppress it anymore with these like crazy compromises of this year and that year that they kept doing, when they were forced to call the question, the Whigs just collapsed and then that created a vacuum, and all of these other parties tried to like force their way in, and the Republican Party becomes the one that kind of becomes the winner. So you would need one of these major parties to basically collapse under the weight of its own contradictions. Then you can have a third party come in. So absent that, if you're somebody like AOC or Rashida or Bernie, and you want to influence things, you've got to kind of work in through the Democratic primary, because also Democratic voters kind of agree with the Squad and with Bernie and folks like that in general. If they can just compete on the resources, they don't really need a new party in that sense.
Yeah. What's fascinating for me, and this is just a quick aside, you'll take my point though, and it's not the end-all be-all, but I think it underscores the point you just made about how difficult it is to get a third party off the ground, even with the people power movement. And when those persons get inside, they understand and learn they have to work inside the system as it is currently structured rather than creating an alternative. So here's the irony. So Cornel West crisscrossed the country, as you know, for Bernie Sanders years ago. And he supported AOC. And both AOC and Bernie came out almost immediately and endorsed Joe Biden for re-election, even as Cornel West is running, and they couldn't return the favor to him that he offered to them. And I'm not suggesting that Cornel West has run for office, but for that matter, neither at AOC. She hadn't run before she ran and won. Bernie, again, a bit of a different story, but it's just fascinating for me to watch how neither one of them would come anywhere near endorsing Cornel West in his independent run, although Cornel had done all that for them, because once you get on the inside, to your point, you realize you got to work inside the system. So Bernie was an outsider, but he endorsed Biden almost immediately for re-election. AOC was an outsider. She endorsed Biden almost immediately for his re-election. Just another example of how this works once you get on the inside and you realize how it works. Speaking of being on the inside, so AOC shows up and she pushes back, in her own way against Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic establishment. She's pushing back with what some would call a more idealistic agenda. Pushing back with what others would call a more progressive agenda. Nancy Pelosi basically smacks her down, as you'll recall. I raise that because we've used these two terms, you have and I have, idealistic and progressive. My question is simply this regarding your book. Once again, it's called The Squad, AOC and the Hope of a Political Revolution. Is the squad, Ryan, too idealistic or too progressive? Those ain't the same thing.
Right, and so when they would get more pragmatic and work within the system, they would feel themselves compromising in a way that, and they would feel themselves getting criticized too for those compromises. So it's never an easy answer. I'll tell you one quick story from the book. I'd love to get your take on this one. So you remember back when there was that controversy over TurboTax, where Congress was busted trying to pass a law that would have banned the IRS from basically producing a free competitor to TurboTax. Because like right now, at the time when you file your taxes, like there was no way to do it online for free. And it's like, wait a minute, like we're the most sophisticated government in the world. I'm giving you all my money. And I have to then go to this private company
and pay them.
Pay them too.
Yeah.
And so in this bill, ProPublica reports, actually they're going to ban the government, the IRS, because the IRS had a pilot going where they're going to figure out how they can just let people file for free online. It shouldn't be that hard. And so AOC and her ally Katie Hill, who's now gone from Congress, they learn about this. They're in a hearing, and they're like, "This is outrageous. We can't do this." And so she talks to other members of the squad, and people are hearing from the leadership. They're like, "Yeah, this is don't really worry about it. I'm not sure this article is right." And it's like in the article, it's all these law professors and tax professors that are saying like, "This is what the law says." So she talks to her legislative aide, and they're walking down to the floor, and they're going to talk to the sponsor of the bill to see what they can do about this. Sponsor of the bill, they had given the bill to John Lewis, and John Lewis just absolutely oozes kind of moral charisma. Like you know John Lewis.
Oh yeah,
the late John Lewis. And so she goes into the cloakroom and comes back out like 10 minutes later and talks to her aide. She's like, John Lewis was saying this and saying this about the bill, and there's a lot of good things in the bill. And her aide was telling me, he's like, you go and tell John Lewis that he's corrupt, and that he's doing the bidding of this is hard stuff. And so she's like, what do I do? He's like, you can't vote for this. Like, you will get crucified if you vote for this. She's like, but I don't want to, And so then she goes on to the floor. When
hold that thought. I want to hear what happens when she goes onto the floor. You're listening to the great storyteller, Ryan Grimm, author of the book, The Squad, AOC, and the Hope of a Political Revolution. You're up against John Lewis, Mr. Morality, Mr. Conscience, Mr. Civil Rights Movement. What do you do now that you're on the floor? That when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on! What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With Venture X, earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy and turn everyday purchases into extraordinary trips. Plus, receive premium travel benefits like access to over 1,300 airport lounges where you just check in and chill out. Open up a world of possibilities with Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Can't sleep with this cold.
Honey.
Honey?
Honey, you need NyQuil Severe Honey.
NyQuil Severe Honey gives you powerful cold and flu symptom relief with a dreamy honey taste.
Feeling better, honey? Honey? I'll take that as a yes.
Try NyQuil Severe Honey for powerful cold and flu symptom relief. NyQuil Severe with honey flavor. The nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, fever. Honeylicious, best sleep with a cold. Medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach.
Get ready for holiday feast season with Pepto-Bismol.
Uncle Derek's here with his famous fried turkey. Hey, Aunt Mary brought the mac and cheese. Donna's here with the potato salad.
Pepto-Bismol provides fast 5-symptom relief for unexpected stomach upsets. So enjoy the holidays. Pepto has you covered, no matter who made the potato salad.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Pepto-Bismol. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Did you know addiction to drugs like meth or cocaine is a disease and not a choice? But getting help is. If you have stimulant use disorder, you, your family, and friends may have a lot of questions, including where to start. Choose Change California can help. Make a change today and find a proven treatment option for you at choosechangeca.org.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
This story is told in the book The Squad, AOC, and the Hope of a Political Revolution, written by Ryan Grimm. But you get to hear it on Tavis Smiley right now. Ryan, finish the story of AOC and John Lewis.
Right. So she's talking to John Lewis in the cloakroom. She's telling him, like, let's take this TurboTax giveaway out. So she comes out, tells her aide, John makes a lot of good points. There's a lot of good stuff in the bill. And his counter argument, he's like, look, we're in the majority now. We don't have to do bad things just to do good things. We can just do the good things. So she's like, oh, okay. So like she goes to the floor, and her decision then at that point is whether or not to call for a vote. So she gets up, she gives like her 1-minute speech on the floor, and she praises a lot of the good things that are in the bill. And then she says, this TurboTax provision is bad. We shouldn't be doing this. People should be allowed to file their taxes for free. This is basic stuff. Thank you. And so she steps aside. They then call the vote, and they say, all in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. And then the key moment comes. The presiding officer says, does anybody here want a recorded vote? and you have to demand it. You have to put your hand up. Now, 99.9% of the time, somebody says, yeah, I want to vote. And then that's why you see the votes on C-SPAN. If nobody says that, they don't call a vote. So the moment of truth comes, and she's like, you only have a couple of, you got time to make a decision, but not long. And she just decides, you know what? No, I'm not going to force a vote just to put people on record here. And she kind of just lets it go through. And so it passes unanimously. And her aide is like, I get it. Like she has to ride on buses with these people. She sees these people all the time. Well, it was going to pass anyway. But on the other hand, the public was outraged. Like the public did not want this thing passing unanimously. So the book doesn't really come to a firm conclusion one way or another on, is she the greatest politician on the planet, or is she a complete sellout? It's like, here are the situations you're faced with when you come in to Congress trying to bring with you your values, and here are the compromises that are put in front of you, and here are the choices that people end up making.
Yeah. When we come forward, our remaining moments with Ron Grimm, it's those last two words in his book's subtitle that I want to interrogate. The book is called The Squad, AOC and the Hope of a, wait for it, political revolution. A political revolution. Is that possible? Is that in the offing in this place we call America? We'll talk about that with Ron Grimm on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
For some children, a single surgery can turn an untreated cleft into a smile for life. But at Smile Train, we understand that most children need a little extra care. They need medical, dental, and emotional resources to grow healthy and strong, to express themselves clearly, and to navigate all of life's challenges so that their smiles light up the room as brightly as possible. Visit SmileTrain.org to learn how Smile Train is supporting the cleft community with lifelong smiles.
Don't you wish your life came with a warning app?
Stop. That dog does not want to be petted.
A heads up before something bad happens.
You should not send that text.
Uh-oh. Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes, you can reverse prediabetes and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. To learn your risk, take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the exclusive media sponsor of this light of ours, activist photographers of the Civil Rights Movement. A dynamic new exhibition on view now at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. This light of ours showcases more than 150 photos taken by movement insiders from diverse backgrounds that reveal the vital work undertaken by a broad coalition of organizers and everyday people whose collective action changed America. This light of ours is one of 3 temporary exhibitions currently on view at the Skirball, which together explore issues related to civil rights, immigration, and pluralism. Tickets and more information for all 3 exhibitions are available at skirball.org. That's skirball.org. SKIRBALL.org.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
Ron Grimm, is there a hope of a political revolution in this country, or are we forever stuck in the frame that we are presently in?
Oh, man. I think there's always a hope. The last 10 years have seen a real kind of shift in our politics. I mean, look at where we are now compared to where we were. One of the remarkable things about writing this book to me was going back over everything that's happened in just the last 7-8 years.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that the same time that Donald Trump announced for president, that same week is when the Supreme Court legalized marriage equality. For some reason that we got Trump and marriage equality into our political world at the same time didn't seem right. It's like something feels off about that.
Mm-hmm.
The ability of regular people to kind of raise the amounts of money through small dollars that exists now is a transformation. I guess what I'd say ultimately is that political revolutions don't last anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Even the French Revolution, that one's beaten back. I would call the Civil War an American political revolution, but then it gets beaten back a bit and absorbed into Jim Crow. We're always going kind of ebbing and flowing. So I think yes, I think we've seen significant changes over the years, and people can keep fighting for it.
Mm-hmm.
But the system is so powerful and so good at absorbing that there's always going to be then a reaction. Like now that you've got, the Democrats and the Republicans are all flooding your inbox, raising small dollars to just give to kind of mainstream centrist candidates.
Yeah.
And if you don't give today, the world's going to end.
Yeah. It is still early in their story. Their narrative has not yet been written, not nearly finished. But what impact would you say the squad, by their presence, by their protest, by their policy, what impact has the squad had to date?
I mean, I think that certainly in this fight over the question of the U.S. support for just unchecked, unconditional support for Israel's war in Gaza, I think you're seeing space created by the squad to criticize that, and we'll see what that leads to in the months and years to come. I also think the climate spending that was in Biden's major bill that he passed might not have been there, were it not for the Green New Deal, the Sunrise Movement, these kind of and the squad really kind of forcing the climate conversation in. So to the extent that we can move a little quicker in a transition away from fossil fuels, I think they deserve some serious credit for changing the narrative there.
Yeah. His book is called The Squad, AOC and the Hope of a Political Revolution, available now wherever fine books are sold. His name is Ryan Grimm. He's the Intercept's Washington bureau chief and the co-host of Counterpoints. Always, Ryan, delighted to have you on this program. Congrats once again, my friend, on the text.
Thank you.
Enjoyed this conversation. Happy holidays to you. We'll do it again, hopefully in the new year.
And to you, too. I can't wait.
Appreciate you, my friend. All the best to you. 2 more hours of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Ray Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The Israeli-Hamas war is now in its 68th day. This comes as the United Nations General Assembly is working on an immediate humanitarian ceasefire between the Palestinian militant group and Israeli forces. AAA is states after eating